Welcome everyone. Today's webinar is our Southern Italian sojourn to Amalfi and Puglia in Southern Italy. And we're going to get started. I'd like to first of all introduce two people. First of all, I'd like to apologize. I've been a little bit under the weather. So if there's some impromptu bouts of coughing in the middle, I'll try to keep that to a minimum. I'll be covered by my wonderful colleague, host of our most recent Southern Italian Sojourn Tour, Amber, who you'll see at probably the bottom window on the screen. Good morning, Amber. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited to get to talk about this trip again.
Exactly. You had a marvelous time from everything that you've told me so far. So let me first say a couple of words about who we are. I see a number of names on our webinar today of members who are new to the organization, at least new to me. So our our group, Wheel and Anchor, was started about 6 years ago after I spent many years in the travel business in Canada, about over 30 to be precise, or not so precise. And what I realized in all those years of organizing trips for Canadians is that when you get a group of people together who have a bit of a like-minded view of how to explore the world and how to have fun and how to create sort of the kind of experience and memories, I kind of liken it to being like a group of friends traveling together. So that's what our vision is at Wheel and Anchor. Um, on top of all that, our goal, my personal goal for all of our members, is to become well traveled and well connected. And excuse me again, this is very much the idea of what a sojourn is all about, because a sojourn, I'm going to explain what that is at this point, is a program where we spend a bit more time in each place than you would on an ordinary sightseeing type tour. So our sojourn programs, often we stay 4 to 6 nights in each destination. That enables you some free time and a chance to really get to know the place on your own, at your own rhythm, so to speak. And that is what our goal is, because when you have that time to sort of be at leisure and not be sort of going according to a strict agenda, is the time when you can really also connect with your fellow participants as well as the people that you kind of meet along the way. So that's a little bit about the vision, if you will, of Wheel and Anchor. So just a brief introduction again for those who are not familiar with us. If you're joining one of our webinars for the first time, my name is Gordon Drager. I normally have a much clearer voice than this, but anyway, that's just an off day. And I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I curate all of the programs here at Wheel and Anchor, but of course, there's a lot of work associated with delivering these to our members. And so I'm joined by an amazing group of people. And the person who is perhaps most important for you, our members, is Paula Sarnik, who is our lead trip specialist and who is the person who gets to engage with all of you and answer your questions and make sure that you have all the information that you need to consider joining us for one of our amazing trips around the world. So today's agenda is basically me taking you on a bit of a digital journey around Southern Italy. And as I say, Amber's going to be my co-host in that sense, and going to tell you a little bit about these places because she just came back a couple of weeks ago. So first of all, the map, the geography, if you will. Our program begins and for all intents and purposes ends in Naples. Naples, as you probably know, in the southern part of Italy on the Gulf of Naples on the Mediterranean. It's a relatively easy place to fly in from Canada. You typically will have to make a routing stop either in one of the larger European gateways like Frankfurt or Amsterdam or perhaps Rome, and then you can zip down to Naples, and we'll spend a night there before heading along the Sorrentine coastline. That's this stretch of seashore that goes around here to this peninsula, which forms the Amalfi Coast on the south side. And we're going to be spending the first 5 nights in Vico Equense. Sorry, excuse me, 6 nights in Vico Equense, which is a wonderful town that I discovered last year. That is just outside of about a 10-minute train ride from Sorrento, which is the very famous, very touristy principal city along the Amalfi, or along the technically the Sorrentine coast. So this coast here, facing northwest, is the Sorrentine coast, looking out towards Naples and Mount Vesuvius. And on the other side of this peninsula is the Amalfi Coast, with the famous towns like Positano and Amalfi. So as I said, we're going to spend 6 nights there. Then we're going to go overland across the southern part of the underside of the boot, if you will, of Italy, stopping in Matera, and then heading to a lovely little village in central Puglia called Locorotondo. And this area is famous for the trulli houses, and I'll explain a little bit more about that when we get to that point in the webinar. We're going to spend 4 nights here in a lovely little masseria. It's like an agriturismo, family owned, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. And then we'll spend our last 2 nights down in Lecce, which is an incredible Baroque city at the towards the tip of the heel of Italy's boot, if you will. So you can see the big picture map of Italy on the inset over here. So that gives you a sense of the ground that we're going to cover on this program. So let's dive right in to the day-by-day itinerary. Excuse me, starting off with our arrival in Naples, which will be on April the 9th next year. Naples is a large, kind of a rough and tumble kind of a city. It's very, very old, but it has a beautiful old town. We're going to be spending a night here. Our main purpose is to sort of gather our members who will have flown in from different parts of Canada. We'll probably head out for a little cocktail. Amber, maybe you want to share a little bit about what your experience was arriving into Naples.
Sure. So the lovely thing about most of the flights coming in, our flights come in early to Naples, generally routing from Canada. And so this was the perfect day for people to get their travel feet, get to know each other. It was, we're so well located in Naples to get to the Duomo and to the little shopping areas that within 10 minutes you were everywhere that you wanted to be. So you could go out on a little 1-hour trip and then you would be back. We ended up where we're staying in Naples happens to be 6 minutes from one of the most famous pizza shops in Naples. So just so happens that we sauntered over as a group and found ourselves just having the eat, pray, love pizza experience. But, the lovely thing about it as a group, I had sort of already figured out that this place was there and went and got the 411, that it was a 2.5 hour lineup to get into the pizza place. So
Nice.
instead, one of the barrio owners let us sit and have drinks, and he Uber Eats the pizza from the place across the street while we had drinks, and we ate the pizza and had drinks. So that was what our first day in Naples mostly looked like, was us gaming the system of lineups and eating
It
pizza in
sounds
Naples.
like such an Italian experience, Southern Italian. It's about gaming the system. How do you get to what you
100%.
want?
Yeah.
Circumvent. So
The lovely thing about just one day in Naples is she's a little gritty. Like there's something lovely and gritty about Naples, but one night is exactly the amount of time till you want to sort of head into the more idyllic parts of Italy.
that's exactly right. And after we spend this one night in Naples, we're then going to make the trip down the coastline, and you'll go all the way around the Bay of Naples, passing Mount Vesuvius, which it won't be as obvious to you until we actually arrive into Vico Equense, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is in front of you. And so let me say a couple of words about Vico Equense, and then Amber can sort of elaborate based on her own experience and what our members who were just there last month thought about the town. But Sorrento is the most famous town along in that particular part of of the Amalfi Coast and the Sorrentine coast. But the one thing about walking down the street in Sorrento is that you hardly hear an Italian voice, because it's basically all tourists, which is not a bad thing. But Vico Equense, which, as I say, is about a 10-minute train ride before you get to Sorrento, is quintessentially Italian. I mean, it's literally It's such a real Italian town. And we're going to be staying actually just outside the town in a little suburb called Siano in a wonderful five-star hotel that overlooks the Bay of Naples as basically the view that you see here. You'll look out to Mount Vesuvius, out to Naples, which is just a little bit further over to the left. So you have incredible views, a lovely hotel, a great base, I think, for the first 6 nights that you're there, right? And Amber, maybe you want to sort of give our members a bit of a context about the location relative to things around and all the activities that we're engaging in.
Sure. So I have to admit, I was a little bit nervous about staying in Vico Equense. I have stayed in Sorrento. It is busy. I still really loved it. I was worried about being outside of Sorrento. The moment I stepped foot on the property, all of my concerns went away. It was so quiet and it was like breathtaking and lovely. You wander just outside of the hotel, and there is like really local restaurants. And, you have the old men on the corner arguing about things. And then you like go to, and there's a barrio just up the road. And there's a fantastic pizza place that's just underneath. You just like hatchback, do the switchbacks down, and you're at the pizza place. So the moment I arrived, that disappeared. What I really loved about it is how quiet it was and how simple it was to get to everything. So one of the things that I struggled with in the times I've been to Sorrento in the past is everything is very close on paper, and then you get in a car and you sit in the same block to just get out of the main area of Sorrento, and it takes you a half hour to 45 minutes to go to 3 blocks. Whereas Vico Equense, we were like a 15-minute drive to every place that we were going to locally. And it was easy to get to Pompeii without all of the traffic and all of the buildup of Sorrento. So for that way, it felt like logistically, this was just the dreamy, dreamy part. And our members, and myself included, hopped onto the train a number of times to pop into Sorrento. And the lovely thing is, the train that you get on is a 4-minute walk from the front door of our hotel. And then the train stops at Sorrento for a half hour. So the concern about, oh my God, I'm going to get on the train and then end up in some undisclosed location, it's like when the train stops for a half hour, you are in Sorrento. So you just get off and you know that you're there. And then 4 stops late going back and you are there. So it really was such a dreamy place to be location wise, and was not nearly as traumatizing as it was like the concern ahead of time that we weren't going to be right in Sorrento, because everything was still at our fingertips. It was quite simple to access.
Amazing. So thanks for sharing that very, I think, viscerally about why I thought when I first found this place in this hotel, I thought this is a wheel and anchor experience at this hotel, because we're experiencing Italy and Italians and all, and again, there'll be lots of time to spend in Sorrento, which is a short hop away. But most importantly, as you said as well, it's the from here we can access the major attractions. Like, for example, our day trip to Capri and Anacapri, which we will organize by a private boat, literally from just underneath where our hotel is. So again, we don't have to go into the hustle and bustle of Sorrento in order to be able to to be able to catch a trip over to Capri. And Capri is all that you can sort of imagine. It's this mystical jet set island that is just off of the Amalfi Coast. And is really charming. I mean, it's here. The interesting thing about Capri is that for all its beauty, and it is a beautiful island, but it's quite a busy place. I mean, there are basically either the sort of ultra wealthy that own villas and so on up there, and you'll see a little bit of that. You'll go up to Anacapri, which is the village that's at the top of Capri, and from there you look down back over to Naples, over to Sorrento and the Sorrentine coast. And there's what sort of struck me is all of the high-priced shops. It's like walking down Oxford Street in London. It's really all a bit surreal, but it's an amazing place to do a trip. and we do a trip there by day by private boat, um, because it's kind of a must see when you're in that part of Italy. Um, Closer to home, we spend a day learning about cheese and pizza making and so on. And we're going to go and visit the Gargiulo family, which is kind of partway between Vico Equense and Sorrento. You get up into the hills, you're in the countryside, you think you're nowhere near all the tourist hustle bustle. And here we learn about Italian cheese. And if you know what Italians are, they're so passionate about all of their food, but cheese in particular. And one of these things, what I like about these kind of trips is you go to these, family places, and I hadn't realized how much value that Italians put on fresh mozzarella. And for them, fresh is like that morning. Like there's no such thing as mozzarella the next day. That's the stuff they ship out and, to pizza restaurants to put on the pizza. Perfectly good, but it's like fresh mozzarella was made that morning. And so they'll show us the same experience you had. Is that right, Amber?
Yeah, 100%. And the fresh mozzarella, but then there's like versions of fresh mozzarella. In Canada, a little more difficult with the unpasteurized and all of our regulations to be actually making. The thing that I loved about Sarah is Sarah also showed us how to make a cheese that didn't require the unpasteurized, so that we could actually go home and create our own cheese that within 45 minutes to an hour you could be serving, and then lightly drop to your guests that, like, no, I just whipped up this cheese and made it for you an hour ago, when you're on the back deck on a Friday night at the cottage. So it was pretty interesting, having the daughter of the owner of the farm be the one that was translating these recipes into like Canadian isms for us.
Yeah. It's amazing to be able to sort of bring some of those traditions home with you. So this is a great sort of half day experience, culminating with some pizza for lunch, also homemade. And then the rest of the day is spent in enjoying actually the town of Sorrento. And there's lots to explore and see, and God knows the shopping is quite amazing. And I think that there's time to spend the rest of the afternoon at leisure. And theoretically, members can stay in Sorrento and have dinner there if they wish, and then hop on the train to come back. Is that right?
That was exactly our group. We opted, there was a favorite restaurant of you and I that we wanted to
Mhm.
go and see. The proprietor is just a very wacky, amazing Italian family. And so our entire group opted to stay and shop. And then we went out to dinner and then all made our way back and jumped on the train and back to Vico Equense afterwards. So we made it a really enjoyable long day.
And it's again, it's also because it's a different day, because it's like, oh, I'm gonna hop on my train to get back 10 minutes. Which that 10 minutes by train could take you as long as a half an hour by road, because anyway, you'll see when you get there, there's one road into Sorrento and everybody takes it. So it can be so being able to go back and forth by train is quite remarkable. So we then have a free day, which then again, once again, enables you to go out and explore some of Vico Equense on your own. And at this time of the year, you can wander down to the beach that's underneath the hotel. You can go through the town itself. You can hop into Sorrento for the day. You can go in the other direction. You can go, theoretically back in the direction of Naples for the day. There's lots of different options to do, and having free time. I think what from our other group that was also in on this trip earlier this year. Our host Todd commented to me that half the group were just happy to just sort of sit around the pool and taking these incredible views that you just don't get every day, and it's such a lovely hotel. So um, that will be a free day in Vico Equense. We then, of course, will do the ultimate trip to the Amalfi Coast by a private boat, which will once again pick us up at the pier underneath the hotel. And Amber, why don't you share a little bit of your experience of this private boat experience down the Amalfi Coast?
Well, the interesting thing about taking the private boat is you get to have the vistas and the views that when you're in a car, you're looking down on. So it's like you really are my experience of being in the car has been lovely and light, and I will always remember it. However, it was a lot of big intakes of breaths and being very nervous and sitting in traffic for long periods of time. Whereas it felt like watching the jagged rocks turn into the tiny little cities that were in the towns that were dotted along the coast, and then seeing Positano sort of come around the corner and see Positano in its glory from the water was, again, an intake of breath. It's like something that I'll never ever forget. And it's the way that this area is meant to be seen, as far as I'm concerned, as well. Like, yeah, there's just nothing
It's
like it.
absolutely. It is a beautiful drive, but to do it by boat. In the lead up to this, I visited the Amalfi Coast a couple of times, and we had another trip there before with a slightly different itinerary. And hands down, our members said, "Oh, private boat experience is the way to go." So it will be a day that you will undoubtedly not forget. Of course, this region as well has a very, very rich and history, in particular the history that surrounds the eruption of Mount Vesuvius that happened in 79 AD. And so I love this shot actually, because you get a picture of the city of Pompeii, which is of course at the base of Vesuvius. And during this day, we'll go up to the volcano and you can walk up to within about a 25 minute walk of the crater rim. The last leg you do have to walk. It's uphill on a very well-trodden road. So it's not a difficult walk, but it is uphill. And you can actually peer into this volcano that is still considered active, not like active like it goes off every few years, but it is, you can still see little fumaroles coming out of the volcano. So it's really um, quite a remarkable mountain, or quite a remarkable volcano. And then you have this incredible lunch on the side of Mount Vesuvius before heading into Pompeii. And you can see how this city was literally stopped in its tracks. And I think that's the part that really grabs people, because this is a city that is, well, 79 AD. I mean, it's 2,000 years old for all intents and purposes, just about. And you can peer into people's living rooms and into their kitchens, and our guide Ornella does an incredible job of sort of weaving this story of what people's lives were like. They have enough information that they can sort of actually characterize the kind of family that lived there, and who they were, and what they did, and and how the whole city worked. And it's remarkable to think that this was 2,000 years ago. So Pompeii is an incredible experience. We'll spend a day out visiting that. And again, it will be a very memorable time. Well,
If
then
I
check.
may, Gordon, can we just stay there for a second?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, by
one
all
thing that
means.
I really appreciated about the itinerary for this day was how we've set it up to take into account for all of our members what their level of comfort in climbing, say, Mount Vesuvius. Because for anyone that hasn't climbed a volcano, the notion of we're climbing a volcano today sounds daunting and like not a really good idea. So the interesting thing about it is when you drive up, we drive up to a base camp. So it's a base area that we get off, and people are welcome to climb as far or as long as they feel comfortable. It's a go up and come down the same route. So you can go up to the first terrace and take your time, have some pictures of a lookout. And then the great thing is it's Italy. So of course there is a bar there where you can have a glass of wine and stay there for the entire time while everyone else, or a cappuccino if you really had to. So, it's not like you're forced to walk up or you're just standing around waiting at the base. It really is like you can enjoy your time regardless of how much walking on a volcano that you want to do. And the same thing for Pompeii. It's a little bit of walking. It's not too uneven, but it's enough that you should be prepared to get your 10,000 steps in that day. But again, for anyone that wanted to sit down, there was a way to come back, and Ornella would pick them up if they didn't feel like they wanted to continue walking. This day is really perfect for our members, taking into account how far you're comfortable walking and what your mobility challenges may be.
Yeah, thank you for characterizing that because I think it's really important. We don't try, we definitely take the comfort of members into account in planning all of these sightseeing tours to these wonderful places. So we'll then bid farewell to Vico Equense and embark on our journey across the southern part of Italy. And the nice thing is it's a bit of a lengthy travel day. I think the total drive time is about probably around 5 hours, or not
It's
even
a
that
little
long.
bit less than that. I think it's closer to 4.
Right. But after the first 2.5 hours, we'll arrive at a city that is truly remarkable, Matera, which is known for its cave dwellings, as noted here in the caption. But there's much more to it than this. This city occupies this whole valley. And I wish I could show you sort of a 360-degree view because it is a wow, like it is literally an out loud wow kind of an experience. It is hilly, like you can see here, but once again, the way we've set it up is that when we arrive into town, we meet our guide and we go for a walking tour, which is the optimal way to visit it. But if somebody's like, I did my 10,000 steps yesterday on Vesuvius, you can take a little one of those little tourist trains that will take you around all the main parts of the city, and you'll get all of the vistas from all directions. And it's a remarkable spot. Did you want to say anything else about Matera, or otherwise we continue then? So it's a great breakup as well. You stop for lunch in Matera, and then in the afternoon continue on. It's only about another hour and a half or so from there to Locorotondo, specifically to our Masseria. And so this again is a place that I discovered. It's been in the same family for now 13 generations. And a Masseria is the southern Italia, the Puglian version of an agriturismo. So they have their own farm. They're surrounded by farmlands. The town itself is about a kilometer away. And you live most of the rooms are in these cone-shaped roof houses with the stone bricks on them. So the character is wonderful, but it's really the hospitality of the family that makes this into such a remarkable experience. Maybe you want to share your own thoughts about staying with Anna Maria at the Masseria.
This was more than one of us cried when we left. The experience of like leaving your own family, like you're part of a family at the end of staying there, was so fabulous. And I can't describe to you the countryside around here. Like you have a perfect view up to Locorotondo, but you're in fields of like olive trees and the olive grove. When you're talking to Antonio, he just casually mentions, it's like, oh yeah, those olive groves about 1,000 years old. Like it's just this casual mention of this 1,000-year-old olive grove that you're in. So it feels like it's such an insider insight into what it's like to be rural Italy and be part of it. We spent because we take over the entire Masseria, our afternoons were often spent on the back deck that overlooks the flower garden and the vines. And that's where we would have, afternoon drinks and cocktails while we decided what we were doing for dinner that night. And it was really lovely. And the rooms were just gorgeous. Like it really did have the feeling of being in someone's home, but being so profoundly taken care of by this family that it was quite touching to be there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and of course, we have it all to ourselves. And in fact, that is one of the beautiful things about this trip is that it's limited to 16 members because well, entirely because of this masseria, because we literally take every room in the place, and we can't take any more people. So which is also a nice feeling because not only are we part of their family, but they're part of our family. And that again makes a dynamic that you just don't often see. So it's a great jumping off point to explore this part of central Puglia. One of our first stops, of course, will be the town of Alberobello, which is considered the capital of you, if you will, of the Trulli houses. And so this is a shot here that I took from one of the main sort of outlook points of the city. And this is where you see so many of these, conical roofed houses that this region is so famous for. And it's a busy place. I mean, this is where all of the tour groups come to look at the Trulli houses. And so it's a vibrant place, but it's a must see when you're in Puglia. It's just one of those amazing things. But after spending an hour and a half or two there, it's enough time to sort of get a feel for and learn about why did they build these particular houses here. And it's literally unique to Puglia. You don't see them anywhere else in Italy. I've never seen them anywhere else in the world. It's quite an interesting story how they came to that. But then we'll hop just outside of town and spend the afternoon at a local dairy farm, and with our guide Michele. So again, we have a dedicated guide in Puglia. He's a chap from the hood, if you will, knows everybody everywhere in every town. That's part of the reason why we work with Michele and do this amazing trip, because he knows these guys, the owner of this farm personally. And once again, you'll see the art of dairy production and let's face it, how they make dairy at home is, the same in principle. Milk comes from cows, but it's not the same. And because the amount of pride they put into their products and the quality of stuff that comes out is just remarkable.
What's so interesting about this dairy farm as well, it's like to think about this dairy farm does very little production for anything other than what's sold on the farm. So this is a dairy farm that exists and is so fully part of the community that the community comes to their little deli setup shop, and that's what they sell, and that's what sustains this family. And it's like, it feels like very behind the scenes experience to actually be there. And then that day we eat the farm products completely from the farm, literally in Nona's living room. Nona has like rolled out this massive table and we're having barbecue from the farm there. The olive oil is from the farm next to it, and the wine has been traded for beef 2 doors over. And it's like literally everything touches this farm that you're eating, and it's a remarkable experience being on the ground having that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those times where you think, God, I really got the sense of being in Puglia, in Italy, and that's kind of what makes it special. We'll head onto the east coast of Puglia, because there's a couple of towns here that are very much worth visiting. In particular, Polignano a Mare and Monopoli, because, well, I mean, the picture kind of does all of the explanation for it. These are just absolutely, yeah, charming seaside towns with all the narrow little streets, and little cafes and piazzas, and then all of a sudden you'll pop out and then you'll overlook this incredible this turquoise water of the Mediterranean. And so we'll spend the day exploring these towns, having lunch at a lovely spot here, and just soaking in a little bit of the coastal side of of Puglia. And this is, what makes this Puglia experience so interesting, is because we have everything from, the trulli and the dairy and the inland thing, and we have a little bit of the coastal stuff, and then we do the truffles down in Lecce in the end. So you really get, I think, the best of all of the aspects of Puglia. Anything else to say about this particular day, Amber?
No,
Okay.
this day it was just one of those, like, you can't believe all of the things that your eyes have seen all in one day, and you didn't have to pack and unpack your bag, 2 or 3 times to do it. So it just feels like such a relaxed way to see Italy, because, we're setting shop up at one base and then doing these little day trips. So it's like somehow it didn't feel rushed. It felt like we couldn't believe we packed in so much, but also felt like we had a time to just sit and have the afternoon to ourselves, even though we got to see so many different things.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of specifically Locorotondo that we picked as the base, because you can get to all these places, Apollinare Mare and Monopoli and Ostuni here, our next day adventure, in like 25 minutes. I mean, it's a hop, skip, and a jump, which means you can go out, enjoy part of the day, but still be back to enjoy the sun setting and the beautiful afternoon back at the farm. So you know, it's a great all around sort of experience. Ostuni, the town that's pictured here, is known as the White Town, a hilltop town. So it's a little bit reminiscent for those that are familiar with Tuscany and the hilltops towns that you'll find there. So we explore this town for part of the day, and then we visit the town next door to it, or very close by, which is actually where Michele originally comes from, which is the gastronomic capital of Puglia. I mean, it's hard to find anything in Italy that isn't a gastronomic capital because, of course, the food is outstanding everywhere. But nevertheless, well, Amber, you share your experience from that day in particular, because this is where our guide Michele hails from.
So this was an interesting day because this town is rarely as visited by tourists. And so it felt like an insider view of that there weren't a lot of non-Italians there. So that was the comment that we kept hearing. It was like, oh, there's not a lot of other people here that aren't from here or from an adjoining town, or you're visiting someone here. So this again felt like a little bit off the beaten path. Is this the day where we then ate at Michele's
Yes,
favorite?
correct.
Oh my gosh. So then our guide took us to the Sunday farm dining. So this is where families go to spend time and unwind when they're not making a massive meal at home. So Michele took us to the place that he grew up hanging out around the fireplace, like huge fireplace. While the parents were all having Sunday, leisurely lunch together. And we just were regaled with Puglia fare. And it felt like love on a plate that just would not stop. So it was just, meal after meal, like plate after plate after plate coming out of local fare. And again, was just such a different cut at seeing Italy, that because I hadn't been to Puglia, I hadn't had this experience of how they eat differently than in Tuscany. And that was the thing that was so different, that there were meals coming out that I wasn't familiar with as Italian fare. And so it was such an interesting gastro experience, uncovering things that I had never even heard of. And now I'm like, how have I lived my life without trying these?
And now it becomes a must look for on the menu when you're going to an Italian restaurant back home.
Yeah.
So we then have to wave a teary farewell to Masseria Aprile for the last leg of the trip, which is down to Lecce. And I immediately took a liking to Lecce when I arrived there. It's one of those towns that I sort of drove there going, wonder what's in Lecce. And yet it's known as one of the sort of the main Baroque cities, not just in Italy, but all over Europe. And it is magnificent to walk around these streets and these Baroque buildings everywhere, particularly in the early evening. So sort of after the sun sets and all of these sort of soft lamps come out on the streets of the town, and you think you've just walked into a Hollywood movie. It is unbelievable. And so Lecce really left an indelible mark on me, and we're staying actually at a different place for next year than you stayed, Amber, because not that you didn't have a lovely hotel in Lecce, but I found this family-owned hotel in Lecce. You didn't stay at Palazzo di Bignami, did you? No. Which, when I walked up to the building, I thought, where the hell are you? It looks like a post-war apartment building, totally nondescript. And then you go up 4 floors, and this family has converted the entire floor of this building into a hotel that is like a cross between I hate to say flea market and a museum. I mean, it is filled with the most incredible artifacts of Italian culture. Each room is decorated differently. And then on top of that, they have the entire rooftop of the building, which is all devoted to this hotel. An incredible space. We couldn't get the hotel because I was so far booked in advance for this year's trip, but for next year, that will be the base point for our stay in Lecce, the last leg of the trip. And as I say, Lecce is an incredible town to sort of walk around. We'll obviously take a guided tour, but it'll give you it gives us a chance to visit a little bit of the southern part of Puglia. And so we're going to head out to Otranto, which is again heading down the very heel of the boot of Italy, if you will. And Otranto is actually another town, another seaside town similar to Polignano e Mari. And here, you find we don't see tons of churches on this trip, so it's good that it's not an ABC trip. And it's kind of like let's go and visit this cathedral. And the picture doesn't do it justice, but it has the most incredible mosaic tiled floor that I have seen. And I've seen a lot of churches and other religious buildings all over the world, and this place is incredible. In this little unassuming beachfront town in to the southeast of Lecce. And then on this day as well, I believe is the truffle hunting day, is it not?
It is truffles, yes.
So why don't you explain your experience of the truffle hunting?
So the interesting thing is, there are a lot of truffles being harvested in this area. It's not as popular or known for it as other areas. So we meet up to a undisclosed location because truffle hunters never want to let you know where you're going. So there was a little bit of secrecy around where we were going, but we're in a forest with dogs that are trained to truffle hunt. These dogs they've been the two truffle hunters, it's a father-son that we work with, and they've been offered 25,000 for one of their truffle hunting dogs. And so basically, you are watching these dogs joyfully run through a forest and give alerts for truffles. And you can't take 10 or 15 steps without, at this time of year, because it's just truffle season coming in, for finding truffles. We found probably about, I think it was in the end, about €1,000 worth of truffles inside of an hour.
Wow. Wow. And again, where else do you get the opportunity for this kind of an experience? And truffles are not exactly something. I mean, we hear about them on the menu at home. They're, it's like, oh, truffle this, truffle that. But I mean, let's be honest, most of us don't really know a lot about truffles. But when you come to a place like this and you see the value of it, I mean, the Italians absolutely go nuts over truffles because it's infused into so many aspects of their cuisine. And when you see how it's all about this super happy dog jumping through the forest going, hey, there's a truffle down here, you better come and pick this sucker up.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable experience, and an incredible sort of way to end off the trip, and make our way home from there. A lot of our members continued on back to Rome by train because you can take one of the super fast Frecciarossa trains from Lecce directly back to Rome, and others flew back out of nearby Brindisi Airport. So there's various options, and of course you could just sort of continue traveling around in that part of Europe. But I think once you've sort of done this trip, you will have experienced so much, and you'll really have felt that you have captured all of southern Italy into it's 2 weeks. But I think that the way that it's structured, it comes across like you've been there for a much longer time. So we think we've really nailed it on this trip, I would say. Yeah, we really nailed it on this trip. So, good. Anyway, that wraps up the itinerary. And so we'll go through, I'll just touch on the logistics. Of course, the details are all in our program itinerary. So if you haven't already get a copy, you'll get a copy sent to you together with the replay of this webinar. So the program next year, April 9th to the 22nd. At the moment, we have only one departure, so there will be only 16 spots available, to the extent that we haven't already gotten bookings for it. which I'm not sure, Paula. Anyway, you can enlighten us, but I know that some of our members from this year were already referring their friends for next year. So, but anyway, as I say, all of the details are in the program there. So you can read about that in great detail. So I'm not going to go through the inclusions, but of course, everything that we talked about today, these lovely hotels and the masseria and breakfasts and all of our guiding, and some incredible culinary experiences, lunches or dinners along the way. There's really a lot baked into the program, but still with the opportunities for free time, ample free time here and there, so that you can just sort of soak it all in a little bit on your own as well. Of course, airfare, insurance are the only things, the only notable items that are not in the program. But of course, we can give you quotes on all of that as well, depending on where it is that you're coming from. And so for those who do sign up early, subject to availability, because I know there's only so many suites, but if you book before the 31st of July, you will get upgraded to a suite in the Masseria and Locorotondo. So that's a good reason to sign up for this program early, not to mention for the fact that it will likely be sold out, as it was this year quite early on, and we were able to get a second departure, but because of the nature of these accommodations, it's not always possible. They're very popular and they're booked quite long in advance. So it's always a little bit of a hop, skip, and a jump, so to speak, to get this program together. So anyway, time for questions. Paula, let me know if we've gotten any questions, or if any questions have come in advance of the webinar.
Yes, I have a couple questions here. So you mentioned like the older style accommodation, specifically in Lecce, that was like 4 flights up. Is there either elevators to access the higher floors or baggage
100%.
porterage?
Yeah, no. There's definitely there's an elevator. So the building looks from the outside, probably is like a post-war 1950s, 60s building, but you can sort of tell the suites inside have all been completely redone. The elevator's brand new. The guts are brand new. It just, when you look at it from the outside, you're thinking, why am I going into this place? And that's kind of the neat thing about it. It does not look like a hotel at all. So it feels very special. Yeah.
I love those
And
places.
the elevator is solely for the hotel guests to use.
Correct.
I actually did go and visit this location and met the owners. One of the owners is an architect, and so he custom designed all of the rooms himself. And so when you walk through, you have the experience of like everything just makes sense and everything's where you would expect it to be. And it's the same thing with the elevator, because I was concerned about it being on the 4th floor as well. And they're like, oh no, you exclusively have use of the elevator, which also goes to the rooftop, and the entire roof is at the disposal of guests to also be sunning themselves. And there's an outdoor shower if you wanted to lather up and really get the tanning oil going on the roof. So yeah, it's pretty lovely.
Sounds very Italian.
Very, yeah.
Oil up and shower up top. Sorry. I've lost track of what other questions came in. Sorry. With regards to, another question that did come in here, the dining or meals that are on at leisure, what's the accessibility within walking distance of different locations, since we are staying a little bit more outside the centers and more local type regions?
Amber, why don't you answer that, because you just came back from there, and so your view is
yeah. You can access food in every location. Locorotondo would be the one that I would say requires the most planning, because technically we are in the country. I walked into Locorotondo and it was a 15-minute walk. We do set up a shuttle system. So I'm assuming that that's happening again, Gordon?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have exactly the same system.
So as the host, we arrange a shuttle. So a shuttle comes in, so you can shuttle into Locorotondo for 7 o'clock, which is when all of the restaurants open. And then we arrange for it to come back 9:15, 9:30, 9 o'clock-ish, depending on how long guests want. Everywhere else, you literally could trip out the door and you would hit a place to have kind of a completely memorable meal. What I did find though, because oftentimes there's breakfast and one other meal that's included. And I did hear from people saying, we were a little concerned that there weren't 3 meals. Including 3 meals would have you be so overstuffed with food that it's uncomfortable. Most people would have just the meals included and then maybe a nibble. So it became a lot of having a drinks and maybe some olives and some cheese, because the meals were really full meals. We were not having sandwich boxes at a rest stop kind of meals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
Got it.
is one thing on our trips in general. I say to people, and again, I've been, organizing these for a long time. I generally believe in 2 meals a day because we do good meals. I mean, you get a breakfast, and then the meal we're going to give you isn't a bus stop, whatever kind of a meal. It's a proper, delicious, full meal. Which and I just left a group in France a few days back, and it was the same thing. And people were like, "We do not want any more food today. It's enough." But it's Italy. It's always not that far away.
Definitely. My favorite thing was just grabbing a few little things and doing like a charcuterie board and a bottle of wine, and pitch a blanket on it for a picnic, or these amazing rooftops that you're talking about.
Exactly.
Would be a great spot.
Good deal.
Another question, because this trip has been super popular and it did sell out really fast, and I know we've got a large list of members that have been anticipating its arrival. Are we having another departure date in the fall? Do we know about that yet?
We are having another departure date in the fall of 2025. We are just in the process of finalizing the timing of it, because again, we have to get space at these 3 highly in demand locations. When I find places, I find great places, but the problem, of course, is they're not exactly all large. So yes, there will be another departure in the fall, for sure. We just don't have the exact dates nailed down, but I promise you it'll be out sooner than later.
Perfect. So members can let me know whether I have the itinerary and additional information for the spring trip and dates, and we're ready to accept bookings on that now that we already have. And then if you're interested in the fall one, just let me know that, and I will add you to a list to release that and share it as soon as it's available as well.
Perfect. Any other questions, Paula? That's it. Well, good. Well, listen, I want to thank all of our members for joining. I want to thank Amber for her firsthand insights of the trip. And as I said, I just met our other host, Todd, who hosted the other trip in the spring. And, he said to me, Gord, you've nailed it. This is absolutely the trip that everybody needs to do of Southern Italy. So I hope you'll consider joining us. I hope we've given you enough information. And if we haven't, please drop a note to Paula. She'll be happy to address any questions that have come in. And thanks for joining us on the webinar. We've got more webinars coming up. We've got one more this week on Friday, which is all about Friday's Andalusia, so southern Spain for next year. So if this didn't grab your attention, come and check out Andalusia, southern Spain. Our webinar will be this coming Friday morning, and the link is in the newsletter, or you can find it, or Paula's going to put it in the chat box, right, Paula? Or
I didn't have it ready. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Sort of the newsletter.
Send me a message and I'll send it to you. It is in the newsletter, and it would be on the webinar page of our website as well.
Catch it, drop us a note. We'll shoot it over to you. Thanks again, everyone, and thanks for indulging me with my little cold. And we'll see you all very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
The favorite part of the trip actually is the people, interacting with our guide and our people. It's been a phenomenal experience in that way.
It's been really great. The things that really stood out for me was, well, besides the obvious beautiful architecture all throughout Italy, has been it's been incredible how close you get with 15 people in such a short period of time. And I know that some of us will definitely be meeting up again. I think Will and Anchor did an outstanding job of organizing our activities. Everything was just no issues, and actually our awesome tour guide Todd fixed everything, any issues that did come up.
I love the culture here. I love the wine. We obviously had quite a bit of different types of wine from different regions. The Masseria was incredible because I think as a group that's where we bonded. We also had a great time making pizzas and dancing and using their music one day. I can't say enough about our tour guide Todd. He made us all feel like we were a family, and I would highly recommend Wheel and Anchor. In fact, we have another trip planned for the Christmas tour this fall.